I'm really pleased to be here on behalf of the Scottish government. Bill is a major driving force, not only in this university, but in the way in which Scotland thinks about digital technology in general. And if there's ever an opportunity to come and support events such as this, we're very, very keen to do so. I have an admission to make. Bill was, and I looked back, you were the 16th person that I followed on Twitter or X when I first got my account. And my wife was the 19th. So I don't know what was going through my head, but that probably shows how much of an esteem that I hold you in. And it is wonderful to be here, and it's great to be part of an event. And I understand you may be taking contributions from Turkey via hybrid later in the day. And I think that's a fantastic, the use of hybrid is very controversial. It's very controversial in the Scottish government at the moment. But absolute, fabulous example of what can be achieved. Now, I love a challenge, but I wasn't actually sure what I was talking about today. Well, I'll leave you to judge that. Because the website said I was talking about AI and cyber, and I thought I was talking about blockchain and trust. And I think it's just a sense of how these technologies are all coming together. But it did kind of worry me because you may have, if you've ever heard me before, I sometimes tell this story, but it is the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me. Many years ago, I was as it says up there, I was a marketing director at Royal Mail. And I was in a room, a bit like this, tiny bit bigger. And I was due to give a presentation on why direct marketing works for older people. That was the topic. And the compere got up and said, we're really fascinated to have Colin Cook here with a specialist talk on the history of franking machines. And I sat there. What do you do? And I would love to claim that somehow my sort of intellectual brilliance managed to bring those two things together. But the truth is I died on my ass that day. And ever since then, I've always been worried about titles. So it does feel a little bit daunting today. I know that many of you in this room are experts in your field. And I am clearly not. But despite the complexity, whether it's AI, cyber, blockchain, I've got a great sense of hope and optimism about the changes that these technologies will bring. And I hope that my presence here today, not as someone from the digital side of the government now, but from the economic development side of the government, is a signal that we do too at that level. That sense of optimism comes from these kind of events, by the fact that you can bring thought leaders, industry experts, that you can attract goats to talk to these conferences. And that gives me the confidence that we will make our hopes a reality and realize the kind of benefits that these technologies can bring. The other day, I was talking to Peter Ferry, who's in the front row, and I think is chairing a panel later. And he reminded me that, and I really do not have many claims to fame or recognition in this field. But back in 2018, I actually commissioned a report into the use of distributed ledger technologies in public services. Now, as a consequence, I reread it, and I'm absolutely certain that it's 7 years old, and almost everything in it is out of date, and to a certain extent appears rather naive at this stage. But one thing is still relevant in that report, and I hope will always be relevant. And it's why government is here today. And that's the overarching recommendation that Scotland should join and must be part of a global innovation ecosystem in those technologies. That's what we need to do. We can't do it in government. We can open doors, we can bang drums, we can talk to people, we can hopefully facilitate conversations. But it's these kind of meetings and the kind of work that goes on in this university and others that will make that happen. In a world of huge change where issues of trust are more vital than ever, that recommendation, and more importantly, I think our determination to do it is more important than ever. And events like this are vital opportunities to come together. For those of us in government, it's really important, as I've been saying, that we work in partnership. So thanks to the Scottish Centre of Excellence, as Bill mentioned, in digital trust and DLT, the Trust for Futures for bringing us together today. Technologies that support trusted interactions are absolutely critical to innovation. Without trust, we can't scale those technologies. We can't secure the economic benefits that I believe that we can secure from AI and blockchain. We cannot grow our economy. So today I want to just talk a tiny bit about trust and why it matters. Touch on some of the challenges and opportunities that I think are emerging from those digital trust technologies. And finally say a few words about creating the right environment. Let's start with the classics, I guess. Back in 2002, Honora O'Neill was talking about trust at her Reith lecture. I've been in Edinburgh too long if I think they're Leith lectures. She broke the notion of trustworthiness down into three components: honesty, competence, and reliability. At a time when trust in government and indeed other major institutions, including, I suspect, universities, is low, it's worth exploring alternatives to established notions of transparency and accountability. Traditional sources of trust don't necessarily extend into the decentralized digital world. As distributed ledger technologies shift trust from central institutions to the architecture of the system itself, they're transforming trust from a matter of judgment to a function potentially of code. We might want to consider how our perceptions and responsibilities are evolving, how we communicate and uphold those values. Clearly, communicating the implications and outcomes of DLT is a shared responsibility that underpins the success of our work. That's why last month we were so pleased that Richard Lochhead, the Minister for Business, was able to attend the launch of the Trust Centre that Bill mentioned. This, I know, reinforced, and I hope it reinforces for you, Scottish Government support for the development of secure, ethical, and transparent technologies. The Centre of Excellence is not only positioning Scotland as a global leader in this field, but I think it is, and it needs to, if we're going to continue to be seen as a global leader, break new ground on the international stage. By bringing together the expertise of this university, of Edinburgh, of Glasgow, FinTech Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, the Centre's going to drive collaborative, industry-led research and innovation. And I hope, and Bill again mentioned this, develop, support, and drive the skills we need to see that through. It's essential, and it's particularly vital now at a time when the need for trustworthy digital infrastructure is greater than ever. You know, our societies are obviously dependent on digital technologies and digital trust. There's a rising demand for trust and a rising need and determination to apply technology. Look at the future of public services. And last week, Scottish Government launched its vision of public service reform for the next 10 years or so. You see digital and data at every stage of the determination that government has to change the way we operate. Whether it's the use of data to shift from cure to prevention, to try and anticipate needs before they arrive, or the use of digital to deliver safe, secure services, whether that's in health or social security or indeed business to business. This demand is strengthened by escalating digital risks, of course, by cyber threats, which are growing in scale. So it's even more important that things are trustworthy. And privacy expectations, obviously, are growing. But beyond these challenges, and I said I'm the Director of Economic Development in the Scottish Government, there's a significant economic opportunity. By encouraging our industries to adopt these technologies, we can boost productivity. And Scottish industry has for many years suffered from a productivity gap compared to the rest of the UK and the rest of Europe. Blockchain and other digital trust tools can help streamline operations, reduce costs, support businesses to grow and scale. Part of my role in Scottish Government is to develop and implement the National Innovation Strategy we published a couple of years ago. It starts from a simple premise. It starts from the premise that Scotland has an incredible history of innovation, and we can quote, and many of them were developed here in Edinburgh. But more than that, it has an incredible opportunity to shape the future of innovation. But it can only do that if we tap into the resources of the expertise we have in our universities and find ways of combining those with the entrepreneurial spirit of people who start and scale and run businesses. And I hope procuring power, the convening power, and I hope the vision of the public sector in Scotland. The national strategy recognizes that it won't happen by chance. It needs to be curated, it needs to be stimulated, it needs to be pushed forward by working together. Whether it's in life sciences, in quantum, photonics, advanced manufacturing, AI, cyber, or of course, blockchain, we need to work at this. We need to work together and we need to work in partnership. Yeah, we have world-class researchers. We've got world-class teachers. We've got world-class businesses in many areas. We've got a base of innovative companies. We've got entrepreneurs who can stand comparison with the rest of the world. But we have to find ways of combining them and bringing them together to foster that triple helix in a deliberate way and keep at it. That's why I was so pleased in the programme for government that the government I work for set out for the next 12 months. There were a number of important signals, I hope, of how we see technology evolving and acting as an economic driver. Firstly, the establishment of a Technology Council of leading business people and academics to advise Scottish ministers on the opportunities that technology offer to our economy and to our society. And that met for the first time last week or the week before and will continue to meet into the future. Second, a commitment to bring together the different innovators in Scotland and to give it a global platform through a national innovation conference like the one today to try and put Scotland on the international map. Thirdly, the launch of AI Scotland. Now that's a new national initiative to encourage the use of AI across the business community, our business base, particularly our small and medium-sized enterprise business base, and to ensure, as the UK Prime Minister said yesterday, we're a maker, not a taker of AI going forward. And finally, the strategy includes, the programme for government includes a commitment to building a critical technology supercluster. Quantum, photonics, sensing, semiconductors. Somewhere in this room is Suresh Kumar, who works in our team, who leads this work. And if you get a chance to talk to him today, and I know he's here all day, have a conversation, see how you can get involved in putting that supercluster on the map. And I'm also pleased that in yesterday's publication of the UK government's industrial strategy, you saw more of this commitment to technology at the heart of our economy and society, a commitment that Scotland will have at least one AI zone or AI investment zone. And of course, that came out a few weeks ago, confirmation that there'll be a £750 million investment in the supercomputer at one of Edinburgh's other universities, Bill. Together, we can build on Scotland's world-class research base and foster innovation. There is a chance to attract international talent and a chance to attract international investment. Europe is leading the way with initiatives such as the European Digital Identity and Digital Product Passport. But we have a chance through programs like Horizon Europe for our companies to access funding and partnerships that drive deep tech innovation, and we as a government want to support that. We can also support Scotland as a hub for inward investment in digital trust. By nurturing a startup ecosystem, we hope we can draw in new businesses, new capital, create jobs, and I hope economic value. And the other role for government is in supporting skills. We have to build the skills. As I go around talking to businesses in all markets, but particularly this one, the difficulty in acquiring the right people with the right skills I hear more often than anything else. and government has a role through its skills planning and its investment and its work with universities to try, and colleges, to try and correct that. We've got to contribute and build upon our contribution to the global economic ecosystem. Through the Centre of Excellence that we talked about, our growing international partnerships, whether that's in the Netherlands or India, the UAE, we can place Scotland at the heart of those conversations. This includes securing complex supply chains, helping businesses comply with new and emerging international regulations, and demonstrating sustainability and ESG commitments, which will be so important in a country whose other great economic opportunity is from the transition to net zero. As society generates and consumes more data, there's an opportunity for blockchain to support the development of trusted AI, leading the foundations for systems that are accountable, reliable, and of course, ethical. And that is really a challenge for Scotland. Scottish Government has long supported this. I mentioned earlier the report we commissioned many years ago, but we do other things, whether that's our work through CivTech, our public service incubator. We have a challenge for natural capital accounting and seeing how transparent blockchain platforms can bring integrity to climate reporting. We've been supporting cryptographically secure data sharing to see how it can revolutionize healthcare systems. And digital identity, we've been working for some time now, and I think one of the challenges we have is to make sure that we keep ahead of this. Digital identity that can give every citizen control over their personal data, like we will see in the way in which the front door to the health service will be developed over the next few years. Scotland, as I said, reputation in developing new ideas is strong. The public sector, particularly in the financial sector that Bill mentioned. We have Scottish Enterprise, we've got FinTech, SDI, Glasgow's Financial Regulation Innovation Lab, a number of assets, but we have to build on them and bring them together if we want to be part of that global economic ecosystem. Just one last point, and that's around legal clarity. Legal clarity is a key part of unlocking the full potential of digital trust technologies. It's essential if we're going to build confidence, attract investment, and help Scotland stay competitive. Some of you, and if you have, thank you, will have contributed to our recent consultation and the events we held, roundtable events we held on the Digital Assets Bill. Those insights, the insights that came from that process have directly informed our work. And we've just recently published our analysis of the consultation, and we're looking forward to progressing this bill during the current parliamentary year. It has the aim of providing greater clarity on the legal status of digital assets as objects of property in Scots private law. And I think it's an important step along the road. Let me just finish by returning to the central theme. Scotland has a great opportunity. I always say that the future of the Scottish economy is driven by two things. The fact that the wind blows and it gives us an opportunity to develop huge and new sources of clean energy and power, and the fact that we have some of the best universities in the world with some of the best people working within them and attracted to come to them as students. We've got, in this sense, world-leading expertise in applied cryptography, blockchain, and a skilled talent of pipeline coming through. We've got organizations such as FinTech Scotland that stimulate those ideas in reality and in practical ways. And we've got a global footprint of companies such as JP Morgan and BlackRock and Lloyds, I think are on the agenda today, who can bring their expertise and their opportunities and their market potential to that development. I mentioned the National Innovation Strategy earlier. That partnership, that triple helix of government, business, and academics is at the heart of this. Whether it's in FinTech or GovTech or any other form of market application. To fully realize the potential of digital trust technologies, we must share our knowledge across that system and build on our national strengths. If we collaborate, we make faster progress. We've got expertise in data, in finance, in innovation. It's a strong, strong foundation, but it's the partnerships that will drive impact. So today, as you talk, discuss, build on ideas, question people like Peter at the panels, whether you're in government, business, or academics, or the tech sector itself, we've all got a role to play. Please get involved and work with us to make this happen. Thank you for letting me start your conference today. Oh, take it. Oh, the word "like," Bill. Hey, I'm not a politician, Bill. As you will see, by the way, I answer the question, presumably.
Does anyone have a question?
Ah, well. Thank you for your.
One over here.
Just
Yeah.
a huge amount of what you just said is absolutely focused on the service sector.
Yep.
What about manufacturing?
Oh, I've done what I always do, and not. Manufacturing is absolutely critical. Advanced manufacturing, in particular, it's at the heart of our innovation strategy. We have a number of key clusters. I mentioned that Suresh was here. The way in which his team is organized has a team looking specifically at advanced manufacturing, and we're supporting assets, as you'll know, like the National Manufacturing Institute, Medicines Innovation Centre. So no, we do see a significant future for manufacturing in Scotland, particularly at the high tech end, and particularly benefiting from some of the sort of technologies that we're going to talk about today. I apologize if I downplayed that. I really do, because I do think it is really important that we don't, and that we have a strategy. And I know government and I know ministers definitely want that to be part of our future.
You have a question here?
Yeah, sorry, thanks.
Yeah.
In terms of the development strategy for Scotland, is it broad-based, or are we focused? A long time ago, we used to be really good at specific things and we build businesses around them. Are we taking the same time, or are we going broad?
It's a really good question. I think the reality is we are starting to focus on those areas where Scotland has strengths. Yeah. But not trying to close our minds. I mean, one of the downsides of a sort of very strong sector-based approach is that you sometimes miss things coming through. But in the innovation strategy, it talks about our areas of specialism. It talks about life sciences. It talks about digital technologies. It talks about the critical super technologies. It talks about advanced manufacturing, I'll remember. And it talks about clean energy industries. And I think those are the areas that we will be focusing increasingly on, but not getting blindsided. And there are some sort of smaller subsectors of those where I think we've got particular strengths. I mean, gaming being the obvious one, where arguably, we were a bit slow to recognize the significance of that industry in Scotland, and I hope we're turning that around. Okay, Bill.
Another question there, Rich?
Sorry, Colin, Martin Dockett-Hughes, former politician, thankfully.
Better than it never was, politician.
Can I maybe a quick question about commitment and accountability and delivery for the government?
Yeah.
Public sector is the biggest player in this country.
Yep.
And I'm afraid it does seem that we're holding everyone else. The public sector, not me, I'm a private individual now, thankfully, is holding everyone else back. That includes manufacturing, innovation, fintech, because the inability to deliver on the ground for the citizen is there for everyone to see. If we see, for example, the NHS app information that's coming out. So maybe some clarity on the First Minister's commitment through the Christie report, a very well written report that should have been taken a lot further very quickly, around commitment, delivery and accountability by the public sector, so the rest of us can actually access those contracts in the private sector for public delivery.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think the public sector is a major part of the Scottish economy. I think it represents whatever it is, half of employment and a great part of the overall economic value. And I think there is more to do to leverage that spend and that drive for innovation, that need for innovation, particularly in the times that we're in. And I think that you just referenced it. I think there are vital parts of the Scottish government that or the Scottish public sector that can do more to stimulate that innovation, use its procurement power, and the health services is one of those. We expect those of us who work in the public sector to be held accountable for the degree to which we deliver on the promises that are made. I've worked in both private and the public sector. I don't notice a difference in that level of accountability, but we can always do more. And I hope, I think it's not that the recent, as I think I mentioned, that the new public service reform strategy, a return very much to a focus on Christie, and a return very much on the focus to efficiency in delivery, making comments about the size of the public sector and how we need to eliminate duplication and act in a more innovative way. So I think that you're starting to see that everything you've just said coming into the way in which government is thinking about the future. And I'm happy to talk about it directly if there's any particular concerns or issues or challenges that you have. But one of the reasons that we like to get involved in these debates is we are conscious that it is only by acting with businesses and academics that we can really drive that innovation. And that's kind of my key message today.
Okay, we have a question here, Rich.
Hi there. You mentioned about EU Digital ID, Horizon EU UK. Could you tell me more about what Horizon EU UK is?
Maybe we could talk about that. I mean, it's a little bit, Horizon being the research, our ability to, probably people better in this room than me to talk about the opportunities that come from engagement in Horizon and the research funding and the research opportunities that come from it in this field. I'm afraid on a specialism, I'm not quite there. I mean, I'm conscious of the opportunities that I'm conscious of the opportunities that it offers for Scotland more generally, but in the fields of cryptography, and I'm afraid Bill might have to help me out.
I think at the current time there are 6 calls out for post-quantum cryptography. That's just one area just now, and really Scottish businesses, SMEs, universities really need to take advantage of that. There is the Marie Curie fund for PhD studentships that we will hopefully be bidding with the University of Edinburgh and Glasgow. And I think if we could get that PhD infrastructure, it really stimulates the spin-out startup. My question is about how is the spin-out startup program going in Scotland?
Well, I mean, I think it's starting to make a difference, particularly in our universities, in our commitments to entrepreneurial campuses. We're never satisfied in this. This is one of these areas where I think we need to keep on pushing ourselves. We do relatively well if your judgment is to other parts of the UK. Our universities are many of our universities are towards the top of those league tables in terms of number of spin-outs. But they're not at the top of those league tables if you take a European view, and they're certainly not at the top of those league tables if you take a world view. So there is more that we can do. Commitment to entrepreneurial campuses, support for entrepreneurs in residence, some of the guidance that we've published, the work that Scottish Enterprise and others will do. So I think there is more that we can do to make that possible. The other thing, and we've just appointed Anna Stewart as our chief entrepreneur, is that we are still struggling. Well, you mentioned inclusivity in this technology field. Inclusivity in entrepreneurship is still a challenge for Scotland. And we're trying very hard with programs such as our Pathways programs, which are going to go out into individual communities and take the opportunities to get involved in entrepreneurship out with the universities into local communities to try and address that. So that's another challenge that we haven't quite got there yet with.
Well, one quick question.
Thank you very much. Just basically adding to the Bill point, since I've been working in UK and other countries to create the entrepreneurships in the universities. So I feel that the basic question is what the Scottish government is doing to basically fill the gaps. So for example, in some of the driving countries, the technology is moving from universities to the industries very rapidly, they are very much focused on the structured approach, not just starting the PhD programs or the things are reaching to the prototyping lab and then they finish, they never launch. So is the Scottish government thinking to allocate some funding, some resource to establish the incubation centers, an incubation center which I have seen in some of the countries, one infrastructures where the testing resources are shared, the conferences resources are shared, the prototyping resources are shared, and in one infrastructures, the academia and the industry, including both manufacturers and service providers, are given the spaces by the government to basically incubate and bring the ideas to the market. Thank you.
I mean, it's definitely, I mean, Scotland has that ecosystem and we have invested in part of it. So I mentioned things like the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland, where businesses can take challenges and academics from Strathclyde and elsewhere will work on them. We sponsor a number of incubation centres, including the CivTech Centre that I mentioned earlier, which is around public sector challenges. We're putting support into our universities around entrepreneurship and entrepreneurialism. So I think much of that infrastructure is in place. There are still challenges. Scotland still has a challenge in scaling businesses compared to many other parts of the world. And some of that can be addressed by the support of our enterprise agencies, and some of it can be addressed by further infrastructure. One of the things that I mentioned, life sciences, is one of those areas we're focusing on, looking at the availability of lab space so that people don't need to move because they can't get access to the kind of facilities they need when they get to a certain size, when they outgrow the university campus. So there's an ongoing program of that. And if there are any specifics, I'd be really keen to pick up on those, because it is something we want to do more of.